Hello everyone, and welcome to Dutch Greybeard. I sold my house to live permanently in a motorhome. Why, you ask? Excellent question. In the previous 6 months, I have been sharing some bits and pieces of this major life transition on this channel. In this video, I want to tell you the whole story, which starts in the early summer of 2024. Let me first try and summarize the most important elements that led to my decision. In 2008, I started my own business as a freelance writer. I became a partner in a small publishing firm and I acquired several clients. One of them, a publisher of an IT magazine, came on board in October of 2011 and would become my most consistent and important client. I wrote many articles, and after some time I also took on the role of final editor and editor-in-chief. This working relationship lasted for almost 13 years, until the owner of the firm decided to sell his business. He informed me of his plans well in advance and kept me up to date until the final takeover took place. I had good hopes that the new owners would continue to hire my services. However, they were not in the least interested to keep me on. Another important element leading up to the changes up ahead was my work for a large client within the Dutch government. Starting in October of 2022, my work for this client helped me to build some financial reserves. However, I never felt quite comfortable with my assignment. My tasks were vague and remained that way. Throughout the whole of 2023 I worked for them, but on my own initiative I ended this job, despite the good money I made. Let me at this point introduce this timeline, which will serve as a guideline, so that we don't lose track of things. So, there I was in June of 2024. I had just sent my final invoice to the IT magazine and had not worked for the governmental client for a couple of months. My two major clients, which carried my business for about 90%, were gone. I had a handful of other smaller clients who occasionally required my writing or editing skills, but nothing substantial or continuing. So basically, I was out of work. I'd saved some money which would sustain me at least through the rest of 2024 and some of 2025. My first plan of action was to start acquiring new clients, or perhaps even take an editing job somewhere. But with every vacancy or assignment that would have suited me, my courage sank. I tried to imagine how I would fire up my internal engines to get excited about doing the content marketing for a brand or a company, but I simply couldn't see myself doing that anymore. At the age of 60, I had done that one time too many. After every attempt to fit into that groove again, my conclusion was invariably, been there, done that. This realization didn't hit me in one day, of course. While I was working on this channel, having fun, making videos, and reading the books I liked, it slowly but surely dawned on me that perhaps my days of being a content creator for others had ended. All through my active years as a paid editor and writer, I proclaimed that I could write about any subject, because ultimately everything has my interest. I now understood that this was true only to a certain extent. My life had reached the point where I needed to pursue activities that make my energy flow, instead of work or projects that suck the energy out of me. There are two major projects or adventures I want to dedicate myself to in the near future. First is this YouTube channel, which I started in April of 2023 and very much would like to grow. Second is writing a new novel. Ever since my early teens, I have been writing stories. I've finished about 8 novels, of which only 2 passed my own quality criteria. These have been published here in the Netherlands, and both have disappeared in obscurity rather fast and quietly. When I converted to the fantasy genre as a reader at the beginning of 2023, an idea for an extensive fantasy story planted itself into my brain. I dabbled and tinkered with this idea, but every time I seriously started working on an outline or wanted to write a specific scene, real life caught up with me in the form of deadlines for the work that paid my bills. So instead of finding new clients or a job, I decided it was time to change gears and make a sharp turn towards what makes me happy, working on this channel and writing a new novel. The only thing I hadn't yet worked out was how I was going to pay for all of this. Coming out of a divorce in 2015, I spent some time in a temporary accommodation. Being a self-employed editor with a moderate income, I was surprised that I got a mortgage for the apartment I wanted to buy. On April 22nd of 2016, I received the keys to my apartment in Heemskerk, close to where I grew up on the coast of the North Sea. After some renovation work, I moved in on May 11th. During the years I lived there, the property almost tripled in value. There had to be a way to access that increased value without selling the place. While investigating that possibility, another idea came forward. Why not sell the place? With the proceeds, I might be able to live until my retirement and spend my time on my own projects. Many options about where and how I should live crossed my mind. One kept coming back: to live in a motorhome. Even though Europe is not really suited for this the way the US or Australia are, it might be possible to pull it off. Live cheap and try spreading the money over the years until my retirement. When my girlfriend Luz came home from a 7-week retreat to Portugal, I told her about my plans. We talked about it extensively and she supported me 100%. This wild and unrealistic dream slowly progressed into reality, and in the second week of May of 2025, I signed a contract with a realtor to sell the house I had lived in for 9 years. From that moment onwards, my life has been quite the roller coaster ride. Within 1 week after the apartment was put on sale, it was sold for even more money than I had anticipated. Today, July 2, I got these in the mailbox. These are stickers saying "successfully sold" in Dutch. And I'm supposed to stick these on the plate outside. That's easy for this side. But the other side I cannot reach. There's no way I can get there. Right, wish me luck. It's official. My house has been successfully sold. On June 20, the draft for the purchase agreement was signed. From then on, I had 2 months until August 29 to empty the house and find my house on wheels. I had been searching for an RV for a couple of weeks already, without any luck. The motorhomes I wanted to buy were abundantly available in Australia or the US or the UK, but not in the Netherlands. Here, hardly anything that filled my criteria was available. The few that came close had too many downsides. Until finally, on June 28, I found her.
Today is June 28 of 2025 and I'm on my way to the train station because I've got a long trip ahead of me. At least for Dutch standards it is a long trip. It's almost 3 hours. I'm going to the place called Nederweert in the south of the Netherlands, hoping to find my new home. I have found this RV online. It's an oldie, it's almost 20 years old, but it has got the ground floor, the exact ground floor I'm looking for. So I made a call, the RV is still available. Wish me luck. This just might become my new home. You are looking at a very happy Dutch greybeard. I just bought my motorhome. Today is July 12 of 2025 and I'm on my way to the train station because today is a huge day which will change the dynamics for the coming weeks. I am going to pick up my motorhome.
The 2 months I had to empty the place felt like an ocean of time. Nevertheless, I immediately started with my library. There was no way I could sustain my book possession of almost 3,000 titles. Inevitably, I had to make some tough decisions. I knew beforehand that I couldn't possibly get rid of my entire library. Of course, I had to keep my fantasy collection because these books are my future as a reader and as a content creator. Thankfully, I could move those to Luce's place. Then there were the books that for emotional reasons I simply could not part with. For those, I had to rent a storage unit. But all the other books that I was never going to pick up anymore because they had served their purpose in my life could be eliminated. There is a separate video about this massive book unhaul. I never actually counted them, but I must have said goodbye to around 1,400 books. A handful of those were sold to people with specific interests, but about 95% I sold for almost nothing in bulk to a young and sympathetic bookseller. Some 1,000 books went into storage, and the rest now lives with Luce.
last bit of soul out of this house.
Since buying Liberty, I have been moving her from place to place because over here, in our over-regulated small country, it is not allowed to park an RV for an indefinite period somewhere. Every town or village has its own rules for this, but generally you can leave a motorhome parked outside of your house for about 4 days maximum. Then it has to go, either on the vacation it's normally used for or to a designated parking facility. Thrice I had the cops at my door telling me they had received an anonymous complaint about my motorhome. So I moved her several times. I needed her at hand because I had to organize the mess inside. Also, I had a solar panel installed as well as an LPG gas tank. During sunny days I can now charge my battery, and I can easily fill up my gas supply at any gas station. In the meantime, the sound in my apartment slowly but surely became more hollow. This whole process of relocating stuff was extremely time-consuming and demanding. My calendar is littered with appointments of people coming to pick up items, with my realtor, with authorities, or other moving-related stuff. Some of my things were sold or given away for free on Marktplaats, which is sort of Dutch eBay. Much went to thrift stores, and everything that was too old, decrepit, or worn was thrown away. In several videos I talk about how difficult it had become for me to concentrate on books that require one's full attention. While reading those, my mind would constantly wander off to practical matters, my motorhome, the emptying of my house, or the many unknowns of the near future. During all this, I tried my best to keep making interesting videos, which ultimately became harder. In hindsight, I have to admit that these were stressful months, and I'm glad they are behind me. The day before I turned over the key of my apartment to the new owner, I injured my back and my left knee. My body had suffered immensely from carrying down heavy stuff, not to mention 3,000 books, down from the 3rd floor for about 2 months. Did I mention my apartment didn't have an elevator? My body said crack, with the harbour in sight. Liberty stood in front of my apartment, and lots of stuff I couldn't really figure out what to do with at this stage ended up in my RV. It was utter chaos in here, but at least the house was empty in the nick of time.
Good morning. Today is August 29 of 2025. You will probably hear it, the hollow sound. This house is almost completely empty now. I am going to move house. Well, I'm going to move from my house to my motorhome. This is what it looks like at this moment. This is where my bookcase used to stand. As you can see, almost completely empty. I have some final things I have to take downstairs. Some of it will go into my motorhome, some of it will go to the thrift store, and some of it will go to the garbage dump.
Today is August 31st, and 2 days ago I left my apartment, and at this moment I'm trying to work my way through the chaos in my motorhome, trying to stow everything I have
which means that I still have to get rid of a lot of stuff. I'm finding out that much of the stuff I have simply doesn't fit into a motorhome, or is very not useful or very clumsy to have in a motorhome. So I will show you. This is how it looks like at this moment. And my first mission at this point is to try and make the vehicle movable so that I can move spots and go to any place I want to go to. So that's my first mission. Many of the closets already are filled with stuff, and some have still some room left in them, like here. Oh no, that's also occupied. Well, anyway, it's quite a puzzle, and I'm working my way through it easily because I was completely exhausted after getting rid of all the stuff in my house. The new owner of the house is already, I'm parked across the house at the moment, and the new owner already is very busy with renovating the place, which you can hear from the street. I'm hoping today, I've already cleaned this locker or closet, whatever you want to call it, so that I can put these boxes back in there. And once I've finished that, which I hope to do today, I will move from this place and put it in another place, which is nearer to the home of Loes, where I'm staying at the moment, which is very nice. Really very nice to have a place to stay, to make this transition a bit easier for me. And at this point, I'm not really concerning myself with exactly which place everything goes. As long as it fits, I'm good with it. That's something to worry about for later times. So we're 1 hour later, and this is what it looks like right now. I've tried to secure everything as good as I could. And tried to dampen everything that could move as best as I could. These bags will do fine. So we're going to do my first voyage, a very short one. I'm going to put it on another place here in the village. But my first voyage with full load. I hope I'm not tilting over. We'll see.
Thankfully, I could stay and recuperate at Loes's place for a couple of weeks before we would leave for Norway and a well-deserved holiday. These weeks I hardly did anything. I was completely exhausted and took my time to get my body up and running again and to find the right headspace. The physical and mental toll of the last 2 months simply had to be paid. On September 23, we flew to Norway. I'm working on a couple of videos in an attempt to capture some of the beauty of the Lofoten. These will be published on my other channel, DGB Hikes. These weeks were soothing and relaxing. After my surprise read of the latest Neal Shusterman book, I finally was enough rested to truly start reading the Lifeship Traders trilogy by Hobb. There were some chores and maintenance things to deal with after our trip to Norway. I had my bike serviced, went to the dentist and that kind of things. Luce and I had been together for more than 1 month now, and we both were ready to spend some time alone again. So I decided to do a tryout and spend a couple of nights on a campsite nearby. Finally, on October 19, Luce and I truly said goodbye. I drove to a small village in the eastern part of the Netherlands called Wilp. Ever since I had the very first idea of turning my life upside down and selling my house to live in a motorhome and try and do some stuff I've been wanting to do all of my life, mainly writing a new novel. Ever since that very first idea about 7 months ago, I have been in transition mode. Starting at the end of April or the beginning of May, I've been mainly busy emptying my house because obviously I couldn't keep all the stuff I had, like furniture and a lot of kitchen appliances and whatever. There was so much I had to get rid of, and that took me, well, to be honest, until the very end. Well, not the very end, just a couple of days before my house was finally sold. That happened on August 29. Then after August 29, there were a couple of weeks again of transitioning where I stayed at my girlfriend's house, Luce. I have to turn on the light somewhere. Oh yeah, that's over here. I stayed at my girlfriend's house, Luce. And during that time I had my solar panels installed on my motorhome. I had a new gas installation installed. A lot of things to make my motorhome a bit more comfortable. That took about 3 weeks altogether, more or less. And then Luce and me, we went on a holiday. We went to Norway, to the Lofoten, which is above the polar circle. And that was about 2 weeks, which was beautiful. Really loved that. And after that we had 1.5 weeks of appointments. And now, finally, October 19, I'm on my way. Free, you could call it free. And I'm very much looking forward to finding my new spot and building up a new routine. So, stick with me, I will show you my Liberty Library first. That's one of the most important things, of course. The plan was that I could stay here indefinitely if I wanted to. However, my friend had recently decided to find another home. 2 weeks ago I helped him move to his new place. Luckily, I could strike a deal with his neighbor, who was kind enough to offer me a place on her huge farmland. I now have been at my new spot only a couple of days, and these coming weeks will remain somewhat restless. First, I will visit a company in Germany to have a new table installed. The old one was not working well and took up an annoyingly amount of space. So I took it out and have been using a temporary solution ever since. Also, I will meet with someone who has a permanent spot on a campsite just a few kilometers into Germany. If things go well, I could rent one of those spots as well, so that I have 2 trusted places I can go to in between other travels I might make. As expected, the rest of 2025 I will most likely not begin with my writing project. But I have picked up my work for the channel and I intend to make some very nice content in the future, near and far away. My first few days in Liberty nearby Luce and here in Wilp took some adjusting in my head. I will admit that occasionally I wondered out loud what on earth I'd gotten myself into. My first few days here in Wilp, I discovered that a bottle of soy sauce had leaked into a couple of these bench cushions. I got stuck in the mud trying to go out for a refill of my LPG gas tank. Because of his unexpected move, my agreement with my friend fell away from underneath me, and it looked like I couldn't stay here any longer. Each time my courage sank below zero, and I strongly doubted my choices. But from what I've learned this past month in Liberty is that every seemingly hopeless situation will resolve into a new reality. I've cleaned the cushions as best as I could, and the stained ones I hardly use anyway. The man who lives next door was kind enough to pull me out of the mud. And subsequently his wife kindly offered me a place on her land with water and electricity, where I have much more privacy than on my previous spot. That's all I need. For my showers, my laundry, and other essentials, I already have solutions. These still have to stand the test, but I'm growing more confident that they will. I mean, everything is well that goes well. My plan is to try and live this life for at least one whole year. At least experience all the seasons once and see how this goes financially. I now have one trusted place, and hopefully I can add one or two more, so that I always have some place to fall back on. At the end of this year I will go to Schagen, a place in the north of Holland. Loes has rented a place there to escape the noise of the New Year's fireworks. There we will be for 2 weeks. After that, who knows? Depending on where my mind is at that point, I may go back to Wilp to dedicate some more time on my channel, or I may travel to the south of Europe in search of warmer weather. So far, I've had nothing but typically Dutch cloudy and chilly wetness. It would be nice to one day pull out my awning, install my outside chair and table, and read a book in the sunset of whatever place I'm staying at that moment. These past 6 months have been my transition from working as a self-employed writer living in a brick house to an early retiree staying in a motorhome. It has been exhausting, strenuous and stressful, but it has also been adventurous and exciting. And now that the major obstacles lie behind me, I am eagerly looking at the road ahead, wondering what awaits me there. Thank you very much for watching this video. Until we meet again at Dutch Greybeard.